I can't believe you are with me. You're not gonna believe where I'm at. This is like holy ground. You have been asking me to do this episode for so long, and I am finally here. I am at the studio where Bob Ross, that's right, Bob Ross, filmed The Joy of Painting for years. And it's in Muncie, Indiana, which some of you may not have even known that. We're gonna go inside and get to see some of Bob Ross' original paintings. Not only that, but the studio space where he actually filmed this. I cannot wait to get inside. Follow me.
Come on in, Nate. Welcome to the Bob Ross experience.
Yeah, well, the first thing, which I have to admit, I feel a little ignorant about, is that I went to Ball State, been in Muncie, a lot, and had no idea, one, that I knew he filmed in Indiana, but I had no idea he filmed in a house. Tell me about how in the world does he end up in this really gorgeous house filming The Joy of Painting?
Because it was a PBS station. So Bob was an artist and an educator first and foremost. So he was traveling around teaching classes. He had one scheduled here in Muncie. He participated in something that WIPV was doing that was a little bit special. There were a handful of PBS stations testing the idea of running advertisements on public television at the time. So Bob bought an ad. And I mean, honestly, his classes, like he had people that attended, but they did not sell out. This one sold out. It oversold. So he and his business partner literally just came down the street from where they were teaching the class, showed up at WIPV and said, "We want to talk to the person in charge." The general manager came out, Jim Needham, and they said, "Jim, what's so special about this place? How did we sell out our class?" And he said, "Place is special. Muncie's special. The people here care, and WIPV cares about good quality production." And honestly, that was just a little door that opened, and Bob said, "I'd love to talk to you about an idea I've had. Can we go to lunch?" They went to lunch. They sketched out some plans of, well, WIPV, how would you like to do an art show? And they came up with an idea. They talked through the logistics, and you're kind of rolling from there.
Man, the rest is history. Well, one of the things I absolutely love that the way you reference him, and not first painter, but educator.
For him, it was all about teaching. He wanted to inspire people with the idea of fearless creativity. His way of doing that was through painting.
Yeah, just getting people a little out of their comfort zone.
We don't make mistakes. We have happy accidents.
So this is where the magic happened.
I'll admit, I've watched tons of Bob Ross, and being from PBS, you're like, when you told me that, no, we literally have the setup in the room with the stuff that he actually used, it's kind of like you go to some former artist's space and you're like, I feel what it's like to stand in the same location that they were making their work, which is pretty wild.
Yeah. Everyone usually is so used to seeing this much of Bob on the show, but what the heck was happening out here? This is what was happening out here.
Yeah, from the other standpoint, I always tell people, like, he was a genius because the show was so simple. I mean, he had, what, 2 cameras, this is not rocket, and Bob. And that's it.
This is Bob's easel. So this was one of his. He had a couple of easels. What's really cool about these is he made these himself.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's an old step ladder.
Okay, I will admit, I've got all kinds of Bob Ross stuff in my treehouse where I work, and I've got this, and I always look at it wondering, like, you can't buy that. Like, what is that? So he built this.
It's actually pretty smart.
Yeah, it really was. When I've been to Jackson Pollock's former studio, and they've got some of his, like, paints and his brushes he used. So, like, this is pretty wild.
These are his brushes that he used.
Here's what's so cool about Bob. I mean, you gotta tell us more because you mentioned it out there. That you look at this painting, which this is a real, this is an original Bob Ross we're looking at here. There's something like, I think a misconception that people think like, well, it's just this simple landscape stuff and I don't like Bob's work. And I'm like, why did he use a limited palette? And then tell me more about like, how much time did he take to paint these?
It is really easy to say, oh, they're so simple, because they are.
Yeah.
So you mentioned he uses a limited palette. That is because he wanted to make it accessible for the viewer. So he always used a limited palette, the same one, so that if people had bought paints, they would always have them to be able to paint along or try it later if they wanted. He also kept the compositions really basic and simple on purpose.
Yeah.
Because he didn't want his viewers to feel frustrated, like they couldn't accomplish something. The other thing is he had 27 minutes to do one of these. They would film these live to tape. So it was literally Bob would start, Bob would paint for 27 minutes, and that was it. There was no editing, there was not taking extra shots. He did not have like magic extra time built in.
Yeah.
So also needs to be pretty basic because the guy had to get it finished up in 27 minutes.
But he's like pumping these things out like so fast. That is really difficult.
He would prep himself for that.
Okay.
So he always had a reference painting in the studio. Sometimes it would hang over there where you're seeing one there.
Oh, okay.
Sometimes it sat on a second little easel. Sometimes it was just leaning over there, but there was always one around. You can occasionally catch a glimpse of him during when he's on camera, kind of looking over somewhere because he's checking his reference painting. And so he used that as his roadmap.
All right. I think it's time we had some fun now.
And he was also getting time counts. You know,
Oh my
with
gosh.
time cards coming up throughout the filming, so he would know where he was
Wow.
and knew what he maybe needed to leave out if he had time to add something.
I really love hearing that like he had a reference. I mean, the artist in me is like, I'm not one that could just make it up. And I mean, if
Yeah.
you watch his stuff and you think, like I guess unless you're catching it, you think, oh, everything's original.
Oh,
He's just
yeah.
like making this stuff up.
He looks so much like he's
Yeah.
just doing it, but no, he was very thought through. He came in knowing what all 13 paintings for each season were going to be.
Like, okay, so tell me, so would he come up from Florida and would he take like months and film a few? How did he run this show?
He would come up 3 or 4 times a year.
Okay.
Each time he came up, they would film an entire season.
Oh my gosh.
So 13 episodes in 1 week.
In a week?
And by a week, I really mean a couple of days. He would roll in on the weekend. He would come in on Sunday night when he could have the space to himself. He would get his easel set up, get his paint set up to be ready to go Monday morning. He'd come in on Monday. They would film all of the opens and closes.
Titanium white, phthalo green, phthalo blue. And until then, from all of us here, we'd like to wish each and every one of you happy painting and God bless.
I see you also have here.
This is one of his palettes.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is one of Bob's palettes. Still has paint on it from the last
Man,
time
that's
he
awesome.
painted using it. And this one we know is one of Bob's personally because Bob's were custom made
I was
to a
gonna say,
custom
this-
size.
Yeah, you can tell. I always wondered that. Like they're so big.
That's exactly what was
Okay.
going on. They were custom made to be oversized for Bob. So
Okay.
when if they were filming, there was plenty of room for him to do mixing and for the camera to get in there.
So you've got here, by the way, so you've got a couple of his original paintings. This is just like random stuff he had laying around, or tell me
So
about these pictures.
these all tie in to stories and memories that relate to Bob. You're gonna find over here a little cup of iced tea. Bob's favorite drink was iced tea, and
Okay.
that's what he always had. And in between breaks, you know, on filming, he and the crew would sit out on the front steps in front of the house and drink iced tea. You'll find a little jar of Vicks Vapor Rub. He would prep himself for filming by getting his hair right, making
he
sure his
did.
shirt was right, and then also taking a sniff of Vicks to clear out his sinuses.
Let's paint. Is this a picture of like the crew
Yes.
and him? Even with our show, a lot of people assume, oh, you must have like 10 or 12 people that come with you. And I'm like, no, there's like 2 to 3
Right, yeah.
typically.
No,
like,
no, it's a small crew.
Yeah, like same thing with him. I mean, it just didn't require much. Okay, so that's another thing people ask me. They're like, where are all these paintings?
So a lot of them are owned by Bob Ross Incorporated. We have 27 in our collection here. The other couple of buckets are out in private hands. So you don't see them show up
Oh.
on the market a lot to buy, but they exist in private homes.
We headed to the house right next door to a new exhibit featuring these privately owned Bob Ross paintings I had to check out. So what does this exhibit have then?
Yeah, so this exhibit is a temporary art show and it's called Bob Ross at Home. This shows off a lot of those paintings that were given to people by Bob who were friends or someone who might have purchased a painting from Bob at the Muncie Mall where he was demoing.
Muncie Mall. It's just so cool that like, if you were around here in Muncie, for all the Bob Ross fans out there, like you could have literally gone up to him and bought one at the mall, or maybe you would have seen him and talked to him and he would have been like, hey, like, I got a painting for you. I mean,
Yeah, he was a nice guy.
he's really just trying to show a simple technique. The way he could make a mountain look real, and I mean when he's doing it in 20 some minutes, it's kind of crazy.
It is.
And his tricks, like you said, you can just tell the back of this canvas is so dark, and it's just minuscule. Like, there's not that much paint actually on this canvas.
No, that's the thing. He actually put very, very thin layers. And actually, if you look at his paintings over time, there's actually one over in the other room I'll show you that it's a lot thicker application where he's putting layers on in a thicker way that looks more like traditional oil painting. And the more he painted, the better he got at doing more with a lot less paint. And it just got thinner and thinner with what he was doing.
Oh yeah, I mean, the master of the quick painting.
Oh,
I mean,
absolutely.
come on, he could just make it look so simple. Okay.
So in this photograph here, you see Bob standing up on a stage painting. And he's got this composition, this canvas on his easel. That's the painting.
Okay, so
that is literally the painting, the canvas that he is painting in this photograph. And then right here in the middle, you'll see this young man in the sweatshirt.
Yeah.
And he's busily following along with Bob, painting his own version. That's Chris Taylor. This is Chris's canvas that he painted that day. This was here in Muncie.
Okay.
At the Greater Muncie Habitat for Humanity in the early 1990s. And Bob was generally into helping out, and he very much cared about the community of Muncie. So when there was an opportunity to get involved in something, he did.
Now we head back over to Bob's former studio.
We head over this way. You're walking into a 1980s living room to really see what Bob's fans were experiencing at home when he came to them through the television.
Yeah.
Have that great floor console television.
Yeah.
You can watch an episode of the show on there.
Feels like I'm like on the Stranger Things set.
But, a little bit.
You know? Yeah, total 80s moment. We got to talk about this because I think this is what is so fascinating about his show beyond just like what he did. It's all the products that have like spawned from his popularity. Like, why do you think that even is, or what started that?
You know, I mean, when he was living, he obviously was putting his name and his image on his products.
Yeah.
But then, you know, since his passing, we've seen him really explode in popularity.
Right.
He's always been running and on view on PBS. That has never stopped. You know, the way that we consume media changed, so you can find him on YouTube. People that utilize Twitch, I don't know, they discovered Bob. So this kind of Bob is the pop icon of Bob on the toaster and Bob on the Chia Head kind of plays into that of people just love having these things around. It makes them smile.
You can't hate Bob.
I mean, this is Bob. Yeah. Bob wanted to make people smile.
This is your world. You're the creator. Find freedom on this canvas.
Well, Jessica, we have to end it in here, right? Like absorbing a Bob Ross episode, because I don't know about you, I'm kind of motivated now to go paint something after all the time you've spent. Just thank you so much for all your knowledge on Bob Ross. It's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for coming by.
Oh yeah, heck yeah, I'm coming back for the painting class.
Please do.
All right.
Lift it, fluff it. You can go on and on and on. Back and forth, layer after layer after layer.